Hey guys, this is me coming at you when I should be sleeping. I've had a lot on my mind, especially the last couple of weeks. I've been dealing with a lot of stressful things, and I've just been reflecting on how stressful, I guess I would say, this year has been for me. And probably a lot of you can relate this year. And feel free to post on the comments below, but I just thought I'd have a late night chat with you guys. Basically, I've been dealing with trying to heal and reinvent myself from an abusive relationship that I got out of, and it's been quite a struggle. And you know, I know a lot of you guys can probably relate to this and have been through this or are currently going through this. This was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. And, you know, I did some research about it, and I researched some things that I'd been going through with it, and I came to find out I was being exposed to a narcissist, and this experience really opened my eyes to how evil someone can be and how evil this world is, and it just really changed me. Like, I'm definitely not the person I was at the beginning of 2019. Like, I started out my year thinking it was going to be this great year. You know, I was really happy, and I met this person at the end of December in 2018. And honestly, I don't really care if they see this, if they are still subscribed to my channel. Honestly, don't care. I'm not even going to name names, so, you know, whatever happens, happens. I just thought I would share my experience with people that have gone through this, because it's therapeutic for me, and tonight's been kind of a particularly rough night for me, and I'm supposed to be in bed because I have one more day of work before I'm off for Christmas, but I just had to get on here and kind of let some frustrations out and just do a little video diary. You know, I have none of my filming equipment out right now. I'm just kind of holding my phone in front of my face just because I thought I'd get on here and just make it a quick video. It's probably not going to be quick because I'm kind of talking, you know, on and on, but I'm basically doing this to kind of release a lot of tension that has been building up and I've been going through. But anyway, you know, I met this person, and we'll say it is a male, obviously. I met him at the end of December last year, and honestly, it's been a very hard year of ups and downs with this person. And I did everything I thought was right out of pureness of my heart and out of love for that person, and it turned out to be something completely different. And my things that I've done for this person ended up being just for nothing. Basically, he tried to persuade me to do things that I felt were animalistic and something a human being should not have to do or endure or go through. And some of the things that he said to me after I had shared with him past experiences were just not okay. I feel like no matter what in a relationship, guy or girl, you should never call each other names. You know, you should never use foul language with them to the point where you're firing horrendous names at them, because I feel like it's the same thing as physical abuse, in my opinion. And growing up, I kind of dealt with this a little bit. You know, I've since healed from it, and this has to do with between me and my dad, and I've since healed from it, and my dad and I are in a better place now, but it took a long time to get there. And, you know, I shared that with him, and he seemed to understand it, and then we got into these disagreements, and he turns around and does the same thing that I just healed from. And, you know, love blinds you. And I've learned that a lot, because a lot of people close to me were telling me how wrong this relationship was and how I needed to get away from him. And I wanted to believe so badly that it was okay and that he was the right one for me. And I was able to look past his red flags and his flaws. And I came to realize that that's not something you should do. And as soon as something feels wrong to you, you should run. And I didn't run. And I had the perfect opportunity to run, because here's what happened. So I met him at the end of last year in December, and we were doing pretty well. We met on Skype because he doesn't live in my state, and so it was kind of a long distance relationship, and everything was going okay. We had really good conversations, really good Skype calls and stuff, and he would call me every night, and then we wanted to meet in person. Well, I wasn't thinking, and I thought I knew everything, and so I let him meet me here at my home. And I know now that that's not something you want to do with somebody you barely know. We should have met in a public place, and it should have been a dinner date or something, and if he wanted to stay there and spend more than one day with me, he could have gotten a hotel. And that's what I should have recommended looking back. But anyway, you know, I had him come here, and you know, I let him take advantage of me. And at the time, I thought it was the right thing to do. But now looking back, I wish I could take it back, because it really messed with me. And it messed with me a lot more than I thought it would. And just because of the way that he changed and became somebody completely different that I didn't even know. And the main tip-off to me that he is a narcissist was through my research, as far as, like, he refused to accept accountability on anything he did to hurt my feelings. And everything was my fault, and he would always turn it around on me. And that's just not okay, you know? I'm not perfect either, and I know that I do things wrong sometimes, but I always apologize, and I always take ownership when I can. But there was no ownership on his part, and he thought it was perfectly justified to do and say some of the things to me that he did. And he would say that I, quote-unquote, deserved it. And I just don't think that's okay. And he would do these punishments for me. And the punishments were the animalistic things that I was telling you about. Like, he would have me get on Skype with him and do things that I wasn't comfortable with. And I tried to voice that I wasn't comfortable, and he still didn't care, you know, and he would threaten and say, you know, if you don't do this, then we're done. And he would constantly threaten that, and constantly threaten blocking me, and constantly threaten to cut me off. And out of love for him, I continued to put up with it until about a few months ago. I put up with it, and finally it just got to the point where I couldn't anymore. You know, my family really loves me, and they protect me, and it got to the point where my mom was like, he's not welcome at our house. Like, you can't bring him here. I don't want you going over there. I don't want you seeing him. And letting go was really hard, because I truly believe that even if the person is toxic, there's still a grieving process that goes along with it. And so I kind of rebelled against that, and I rebelled against what God was telling me, because I'm Christian personally, and I respect everybody's beliefs. So if you don't believe that, that's okay. As long as you respect me and I respect you, it's totally fine. And you don't have to watch this if you don't believe in that. But anyway, you know, there was a lot of rebellion going on between me and God, and I wasn't truthful with my family, and I still would see him and go travel and see him, and I got caught a couple of times, and it drove a wedge between me and my mom, and we're close, like, we're best friends, and this was the #1 thing that drove us apart to some degree. And we're fine now, but we weren't while I was with him, and it took a toll on our relationship. And my dad kind of stayed out of it, but I know if he knew half of what went on and half of what he had me do and things that he called me, my dad would probably kill him. So it's probably a godsend no, it is a godsend that he doesn't live in this state, because if he did and he was easy to get to, my dad probably would end up in jail, because that's how protective he is of me. And even when we had our issues, he still was protective of me. That's the number one thing that I can always count on my dad for. You know, and it's just been a very hard year. I mean, you go into these relationships thinking that they're going to be okay and that nothing's going to go wrong. And then when things like this happens, especially to this magnitude, it messes with you and it makes you afraid. And, you know, I'm kind of hoping that next year is a better year for me. Because this was not the first bad experience I'd had with meeting somebody online. So personally for me, and I know some of you guys do the opposite, and that's fine. But because of what I've been through in the past, and personally for me, I swore off all online dating. So I'm like not on anything. I'm not on Tinder. I'm not on anything. I'm just kind of relying on God at this point, and I'm allowing him to intervene and open myself up to other people at this point. You know, and it's been really hard, and it's still hard now. And, you know, just tonight's just kind of been a particularly emotional night for me. And so that's why I'm on here talking to you guys about it. But I know God has looked out for me throughout my life, and when I refuse to do things his way, he forces the circumstances to happen in a way that protects me. And looking back on my relationship history, I've noticed that a lot. Like, he's done things I wasn't quite prepared for. But after I went through it and a few months go by, I realized that I was more prepared than I thought I was. So I am grateful for, you know, things that he's done. And even though there's grief in it, and even though I rebel sometimes, I know in the end it's for my own good. And I know at the end of the day what I deserve. And I don't deserve anything that this person did to me. And what he said to me doesn't define me. And I'm not particularly angry at myself for doing what I've done and what he had me do. But I am trying to heal from the fact that he did all of this out of his own personal gain. And it wasn't out of love for me. And I'm trying to heal from that. And my heart is more guarded now, because now I question people's motives. And I wonder, okay, are you just saying the right things to get what you want? Or is this really something that you genuinely care about as far as like meanings and stuff and what people say? Because I've fallen victim to numerous occasions to guys who just say what they want to get what they want. And then when they finally get what they want, their true colors show. But to go back to my story, I found a perfect opportunity to leave, and I chose not to. You know, the relationship was going well, and I finally had him meet me here, and I let him take advantage of me. And he had been coming consecutively for a couple of weekends, and then a really bad ice storm hit, and he happened to be an hour from me and was at this convention or something, this card game thing. And he went to it all night, and the plan was for him to come from there to my house and stay, because it would have been all night and he would have been really tired, and I was going to have him rest at my house. Well, instead of doing that, he got a little freaked out about the weather and drove from where he was back to his apartment. And, you know, he slept all day that day, so I expected not to hear from him all day. But then the evening came, and it started to get really sketchy to me. He sent me a message saying that the wires in his brain were crossed. I don't know, this is crazy. He said the wires in his brain were crossed, and all of a sudden I am annoying to him. And that didn't make any sense, and I was really upset about that, because this was after ignoring me for most of the day. I mean, I know he slept for most of it, but still, like, ignoring me during the hours he normally would have been awake after that. And then he goes the whole night and doesn't say anything to me. And I got upset because I thought, oh, well, he just got what he wanted and then booked. And I was really upset. I was crying. And finally, midday, the following day shows up. And he claims that he got super drunk and fell asleep at his apartment and drove drunk home after going to a bar to see a game. And that didn't add up to me. And now looking back on it, it really doesn't add up. Because you don't just, I mean, he shouldn't have been behind the wheel if he was that drunk. Because you don't just go to your home and, like, pass out in 2 seconds. Unless there's something wrong. Or you're really hungover or drunk to the point where you're just, like, out of it. To where you couldn't have been driving. So that didn't add up. And when he finally started talking to me again, you know, I told him how that made me feel. And, you know, how sad I felt and stuff. You know, he kind of kept apologizing and everything. And it was fine. But then those situations started to happen more frequently among our relationship as far as us getting into arguments about communication. And the verbal abuse started. And I just kept letting it go and letting it pass. And we would go several weeks without seeing one another. And then it became an expectation for me to start doing most of the driving as a single female on my own, driving out of state. And my parents did not approve of this. And it just became too much. I enjoyed traveling, don't get me wrong, but the visiting started to not be shared among the two of us. And he ended up in a hospital for, you know, a lot of mental issues and stuff. Like, he was having a breakdown and stuff, and he ended up in the hospital. Well, I drove and saw him for one day and then drove all the way back home that same day. And I brought him clothes, and I gave him money to bail him out of an apartment he could no longer afford. And I gave him money to get out of a car situation because he got into a car accident. So I helped him pay off that, and I helped him pay off his lease. And I've given him gifts. You know, I've given him CDs. I paid to get him a game that he wanted on his computer. And all he could give me in return were, like, chips. And that was pretty much about it. Chips and maybe a few magic cards. You know, and I was blind to all of it. I accepted all of it. But then I realized, you know, we want different things. We both want very different things. And, you know, it really broke my heart. And my heart's still kind of broken now. And I'm working on healing. And I'm just hoping and praying that not just for me, but for everybody out there, that next year is a better year. Like, I feel like for a lot of people, not just for me, this year has been very challenging. And people are going through things that nobody should really have to go through. And it was weighing heavy on my heart to kind of share this with you guys. And, you know, I know I don't deserve at the end of the day what this person put me through. You know, and I can't control, that's the thing that I have to remember, is I can't control what happens on his side from here on out. I can't control what he's going to tell people. I can't control, you know, what people think of me on his side. And in the end, that shouldn't matter. Because it doesn't define me. You know, it doesn't define who I am as a person at the core. It doesn't define how deeply I care and how empathetic I can be towards people. And how I can pick up on emotions to the point where I can just radiate and relate to that person. You know, I have a lot of, and I'm trying to remind myself, and I have a journal I have to get back into doing, but I have to remind myself of my good qualities and what I do bring it to the table at the end of the day. And if that's not something that person is after in a relationship, then that's my cue that I need to walk. And I'm hoping that these experiences are shaping me to the point where I actually do find my forever person. Because I'm at the point now where I'm just almost wanting to give up because I've had so many bad experiences. But I'm just praying and I'm letting God take over. And I'm just kind of letting him take the lead at this point. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate, and you can feel free to leave your input in the comments. And I would appreciate a like and subscribe. This channel really has no method, no plan. It's just kind of here, and I post whatever on here. So like I do product reviews, I do vlogs. Tonight's kind of like a late night chat, you know, about things. And I'm sorry it's a very long chat. I just felt like getting on here and talking to people, like strangers and just people out there that can relate to this. Like, especially if you have been through narcissism and narcissistic abuse. Like, I really want to hear your stories. You know, because it's been a rough road for me, and I'm just now getting to the point where I can breathe a little bit, but it's taken a long time. And I wrestled a long time with the idea of finally letting him go. And unfortunately, some of these decisions were not made on my end. They were made on his. And I do think that that's a blessing in disguise, because I don't think that we should continue talking to each other, because the things he has to say and the things I have to say are both volatile to one another. And I'm hoping that he doesn't hoover me or try to come back if things don't work out with other women. I'm going to take measures to make sure he doesn't. But yeah, because part of me is a little bit of afraid of what he could do as retaliation as a result of the end of our relationship. But, you know, I can't worry about that. I got to live my life. I can't live in fear. But there are measures I am taking and will take to keep myself safe. And I'm just ready for next year. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to be in relationships with people that are healthy. You know, that want the same thing for me. Like, I want a family. I want to get married. I want a God-centered relationship. You know, I don't ask for much. Like, I value communication. That's really it, you know? And if they can't do that, it's a basic thing. If they can't communicate, you know, that means it's not meant to be. Like, I feel like as a common courtesy, you know, when you're communicating with somebody, if you can't talk right away, or you're in the middle of getting busy with something, or you're in the middle of getting ready to do something, tell that other person. Like, it doesn't take that long. It takes 2 seconds to text the significant other that you're busy, or you're in the middle of something, or, you know, you'll talk when you're finished with whatever it is that you're finished doing, you know? And he couldn't even do that. And then he wonders why our disagreements would start. Like, I would come back and say, hey, I shouldn't have to wait this long for you to answer me, you know? And he just thought that was ridiculous. And I didn't think it was asking for much. He thought I was crazy. And the fact that he thought that, it just solidifies even more that he's a narcissist. Like, he would make this like a punishment-based relationship, whether or not I deserved certain things or certain privileges in the relationship. And I just don't think that's healthy. I'm still fairly new to this concept and this topic. I'm still doing research on it just to keep myself safe. I do kind of realize, looking back, when we first met, that was kind of the love bombing stage. He was trying to get his hooks in, and he tried and he succeeded for a little while. That's what all the niceness came from. But anyway, you know, I'm not naming any names, because just in case they're still on here and they can still see this, you know, I don't want to name any names so that this doesn't get taken down. But anyway, I just hope that everybody that's going through this gets away like I did, and I hope we all have better years ahead of us. I'm sure ready for one that's not full of disaster. The main positive thing that happened this year was I got my own place, but it's been full of a lot of ups and downs on top of that, you know, car issues and being locked out of my account that I pay for through Microsoft, and that's a whole other story. I'll probably do something on that a little bit later, but it's late and I have to get ready for my 1 day of work before I'm on vacation for the holidays. So I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas if I don't get back on here between now and then. Like this video and subscribe, and I will be back with more content soon.